In 2018, the U.S. alone produced 6.4 billion gallons of beer. As 21-year-olds, many of us have contributed to those sales without batting an eye. Have we truly considered the environmental impacts of our beer drinking habits? To find out, we asked students on the University of Florida campus what pollutants they think come out of the brewing process.
I think it would be, I don't know, like gas, oil. Yeah, that's about it.
It's like a hard question. I feel like I honestly wish I knew more. As someone who does drink beer, I feel like I should know the way that I'm contributing to harming the environment. But I mean, I know oxidation is a part of brewing, but I don't think that would be a pollutant since it's oxygen. So I really wouldn't know exactly.
Hello, I guess that CO2 and methane come out of breweries.
So I can spray it.
I don't know.
I honestly have no idea, but I'd be very interested to find out.
A lot of brewery, I'd say a lot of kind of chemicals and stuff from the brewing process, steam and stuff from heating up the barley and the wheat and stuff.
I think CO2, but I'm not sure what other kinds of pollutants come out. Yeah. Okay, I'm really not sure.
I honestly don't have much of an idea. I mean, if I had to guess, it'd probably be carbon dioxide.
I really have no idea what air pollutants come out of a brewery.
I have no idea.
No idea. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm still gonna drink it though.
So the biggest difference between a microbrewery, a craft brewery, and a macro brewery is the amount that is distributed and produced each year. So a microbrewery produces no more than 15,000 barrels per year. A craft brewery produces no more than 6 million barrels per year, and a macro brewery produces more than 6 million barrels per year.
To investigate the differences in air emissions, we first toured First Magnitude in Gainesville, Florida, which is classified as a microbrewery because they sell 3,000 to 4,000 barrels per year. The mill room is completely separate from the other parts of the brewing process due to the high risk of explosion. Because of the risk, everything in the room is grounded. The operators must wear respirators in this room. Although particulate matter is generated, there are not any control mechanisms in place. The operators just try to keep the room as clean as possible.
During the fermentation process, the most concerning air pollutant emitted is carbon dioxide. As a microbrewery, there are no regulations in place to control CO2. Therefore, the carbon dioxide is emitted directly to the atmosphere. As an environmentally friendly business, First Magnitude works with the local Gainesville nonprofit We Are Neutral to ensure that their brewing operations are in fact carbon neutral.
Our next tour was at the Yingling facility in Tampa. Yingling is a macrobrewery. This facility alone produces 1.2 million barrels per year, and as a whole produces more than 6 million barrels per year.
Grains come to the Tampa facility by rail car. These rail cars are emptied by a vacuum pump that first is transported to a pulse jet bag house. This bag house collects small particulate matter and transports that matter into some secondary silos here, which are used to store grain that has already been through the milling process. After you go through the bag house, the larger particulate matter is stored in the first set of silos and waits to be processed in the milling room. Once it is ready to be processed, it goes to the milling room by another vacuum pump over here and hits another pulse jet bag house and then comes into our milling room.
These pulse jet bag houses used are made of a material called Gore-Tex. They made this decision largely due to its tolerance to humidity. The bag houses are inspected every 3 months and typically they are changed every 2 years.
As shown in the diagram, the grain moves from the silos to the mill room when the process is ready to begin. In this room, 75 tons of grain are milled per hour. This generates a copious amount of particulate matter. With an abundance of particulate matter, they have to take many safety precautions. First, as soon as 1/8 inch of dust collects on any horizontal surface, operators must use a vacuum to send that fine dust back to the silos. Secondly, when the mill is operating, operators must wear respirators and goggles if they are in the room. Third, non-sparking tools must be used as to avoid explosions. And lastly, in case of an explosion, the windows will be blown out easily as to minimize damage to other parts of the building.
Another part of the process that emits air pollutants is the boiling and fermentation process. The main constituents of concern here are CO2 and VOCs. At Yingling, all of the CO2 is collected using countercurrent wet scrubbers and used in the carbonation process. Therefore, they do not emit any CO2 during the brewing process. VOCs are directly emitted to the atmosphere, however. So through this project, we were able to figure out what air pollutants come from the making of beer through the brewery process, and that some breweries are more sustainable than others.
So next time you crack a cold one with your friends, make sure you keep in mind those environmental impacts and help support more sustainable breweries.
I don't always drink beer, but when I do, I think about the environmental impacts. Stay sustainable, my friends.